Welcome back to Wisdom Unveiled. We are on episode 33.
33.
And we are diving deep into more of Saadi's poetry.
Yeah.
And we are working from translations of 50 recordings.
That's a lot.
Of conversations between Dr. Dinani and Dr. Larijani.
Yeah.
So, full disclosure, we are working from translations, so
of course.
Apologies if some nuances get
lost in translation.
No
ways.
But trust me, the core ideas are powerful.
Absolutely. And what struck me is how Saadi uses the concept of night to explore the human soul. He doesn't shy away from darkness.
Okay.
Actually, he sees it as crucial to the journey towards the divine.
So let's unpack this night metaphor.
Right.
It sounds a little ominous, doesn't it?
Well, think about it. Night is when we confront our inner world, the parts of ourselves we might not want to acknowledge in the full light of day. Saadi suggests that this confrontation, even if uncomfortable, is actually how we move closer to God.
So he's saying darkness isn't something to fear. It's actually a source of insight.
Exactly. Dr. Dinani points out that even the Quran itself was revealed during Laylat al-Qadr.
Laylat al-Qadr.
The night of power.
The night of power.
It's almost like darkness creates the space for profound revelation. And Saadi takes it even further, contrasting the 6 outward directions we use to describe physical objects with the inward layers of a human being.
So it's like he's saying that trying to understand a person's soul through purely external means is like trying to measure their depth with a ruler.
That's a great way to put it. He's highlighting that our inner world can't be analyzed or dissected scientifically.
Right.
It needs a different kind of exploration, the kind Saadi guides us towards with his poetry.
And one of the most powerful images he uses is that well of the heart, right?
Yes. The well of the heart where we confront our imperfections and weave tears of remorse.
Wow.
It's a potent metaphor for the depths of self-reflection Saadi encourages.
And he describes it as having no bottom, which suggests that this process of introspection is never truly finished.
Precisely. There's always more to discover, more to understand about ourselves. And this ties into Saadi's perspective on sin.
Okay.
He doesn't see it as an inherent defect, but more as a consequence of living in a world full of temptation.
So he's acknowledging that we're all susceptible to making mistakes, given the complexities of life.
Exactly. Dr. Larijani even brings up the point that sin isn't necessarily a bad thing in and of itself. In fact, it can be a catalyst for growth.
Hold on, are we saying it's good to sin?
Not quite. It's more about how we respond to those moments when we realize we've fallen short.
Okay.
Saadi emphasizes the importance of confronting those flaws, seeking forgiveness, and using those experiences to deepen our connection with God.
So it's more about recognizing our capacity for sin and using those experiences as opportunities for spiritual growth.
Exactly, and Saadi embodies this himself. There's a line where he directly addresses God saying, "Look upon us with your generosity, for sin has come from your servants." It's a remarkable statement, especially coming from someone so revered.
It speaks to a profound humility, doesn't it? Recognizing that even someone as wise as Saadi understood his own imperfections.
And this leads to a question Dr. Dinani raises.
Okay.
Would a world without sin diminish God's attributes?
That's interesting.
Would we even need mercy or forgiveness if everyone was perfect?
It's a thought-provoking question. Is he suggesting that our capacity for sin is somehow necessary for us to truly experience God's grace?
It's more nuanced than that. His point is that God's qualities like mercy and forgiveness, they exist regardless.
Right.
But it's experiencing the need for forgiveness that allows us to grasp its power in a way a perfect being never could.
It's like we need to feel the weight of our mistakes to truly appreciate the lightness of being forgiven.
And Saadi captures this beautifully with the image of lifting the hand of the heart in prayer.
So not literally lifting our hands, but more about approaching prayer with a sense of surrender and recognition of our need for something greater than ourselves.
Precisely. It's about connecting with that part of ourselves that acknowledges our limitations and seeks guidance from the divine.
Right.
And this ties into a fascinating point Dr. Larijani brings up about Prophet Muhammad having 2 names.
2 names.
Muhammad, his earthly name.
Interesting.
And Ahmad, his heavenly name.
Okay, how does this relate to Sa'i's work?
Dr. Larijani explains that the name Muhammad represents a guide,
Okay.
leading people away from worldly attachments towards the afterlife, which they refer to as Akhirah.
Akhirah.
This signifies moving beyond the material world towards a spiritual realm.
So the name Muhammad helps us transition from a worldly focus to a spiritual one.
Yes. And then the name Ahad the heavenly name,
Right.
represents the next stage. It's about progressing from the afterlife, akhira, to the divine presence itself.
Wow.
What they describe as hadiyat and wadiyat,
Aldiya.
meaning absolute oneness and unity with God.
So it's a two-step process, first moving away from the material and then moving towards unity with the divine. And Saadi's poetry seems to guide us through both of these stages.
Absolutely. And another key element in this journey is what Saadi calls breaking down idols.
He's not talking about smashing statues, is he?
Right. He's urging us to break down those mental constructs, the limiting beliefs and attachments that prevent us from experiencing true unity with God.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Dinani highlights a subtle but important distinction in Saadi's words.
Okay.
He doesn't say break down idols to reach unity, but rather experience unity so that idols are broken.
That's a fascinating distinction.
Yeah.
So it's not about forcefully dismantling our beliefs, but more about shifting our focus to the divine and allowing that connection to naturally dissolve those limitations.
Exactly. It's about cultivating that inner connection to the divine, and in doing so, seeing those false beliefs and attachments fall away.
This is all pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see why Saadi is considered such a profound thinker. It's not just about being good, it's about this constant process of self-reflection, seeking forgiveness,
Right.
and striving for something bigger than ourselves.
And what's really stuck with me is Saadi's idea that confronting our darkness, our flaws, actually deepens our connection to God. It's like our imperfections, our need for forgiveness, help us to grasp the vastness of God's love in a way that perfection never could.
So what does this all mean for you, listener?
Yeah.
Think about those idols in your own life, those beliefs or attachments that might be holding you back. Could facing them and maybe even embracing your imperfections be the key to a more fulfilling life?
Mm-hmm.
Something to ponder as we continue our deep dive into the wisdom of Saadi.
This idea of breaking down idols to experience unity with the divine reminds me of a point Dr. Dinani made about mathematics and understanding the nature of reality.
Oh, right. He got pretty passionate about how math alone can't fully capture the essence of things. What was his argument exactly?
He emphasized that while math is crucial for measuring and analyzing the natural world, it doesn't tell the whole story. There are aspects of reality that go beyond what can be quantified.
I'm curious about this. If math isn't enough, what else do we need to truly understand the world around us?
Dr. Dinani argued that we need other ways of knowing.
Other ways of knowing?
Other forms of expression to grasp the true essence of things.
Like what?
He specifically mentioned poetry, art, and music.
That makes sense. A mathematical formula can't fully express the beauty of a sunset or the depth of human emotion.
Exactly. He argued that these creative expressions tap into different aspects of reality, those intangible qualities that can't be measured or quantified.
So we need both the logical, analytical side and the creative, intuitive side to grasp the fullness of existence.
Precisely. It's about integrating different ways of knowing, and Saadi, as both a poet and a scholar, embodies this idea of a holistic understanding of the world.
So how does this connect back to the idea of experiencing unity with the divine? Is there a link between these different ways of knowing and that ultimate connection?
Dr. Larijani brought up a fascinating point about how Saadi uses language to express the inexpressible.
The inexpressible.
Specifically when it comes to describing God, he talked about how Saadi describes God as being beyond all attributes, beyond any concept or definition we can come up with.
That sounds almost impossible. How do you describe something that's beyond description?
That's the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah.
But Dr. Larijani explained that Saadi uses a technique called via negativa.
Via negativa.
Describing God by saying what God is not.
Okay.
Rather than what God is.
Interesting. So instead of saying God is love or God is merciful, he might say,
God is not limited by time.
okay.
God is not bound by space, or God is not subject to change.
So by negating those limitations, by saying what God isn't, he's pointing towards something that's beyond our comprehension.
Exactly. And this is where poetry comes in. Saadi uses metaphors, imagery, and rhythm to evoke a sense of the divine that transcends words.
So it's not about defining God intellectually, but about experiencing that connection on a deeper level.
And Dr. Dinani highlighted how this approach to language is also reflected in Saadi's teachings on prayer.
I remember that. He said that true prayer isn't just about reciting words or asking for things.
Right. He emphasized that it's about aligning ourselves with the divine will, cultivating qualities like gratitude, humility, and compassion.
It's about surrendering to something bigger than ourselves.
And Saadi's poetry offers beautiful examples of how to do this.
Okay.
Remember that line where he says, with every breath, I offer my gratitude for the gift of life.
It's simple yet profound.
That sense of gratitude, recognizing the blessings in our lives, is essential for experiencing that connection with the divine.
So prayer is less about trying to bend God to our will and more about opening ourselves to that flow of grace and gratitude.
Exactly. That openness, that willingness to surrender is what allows us to experience the true meaning of prayer. And this takes us back to the idea of sin and forgiveness. If we're constantly trying to control things to make things go our way, we miss the point entirely.
It seems Saadi is reminding us that our mistakes, our imperfections, are all part of the journey.
And it's in those moments of recognizing we've fallen short that we can turn towards the divine and experience the depth of God's mercy.
So it's not about being perfect, it's about embracing the whole experience, the good and the bad, the light and the shadow.
And in that embrace and accepting our own humanity, we find true freedom and liberation.
This makes me think about how much we try to avoid discomfort in life, to numb ourselves to the difficult parts. But Saadi seems to be suggesting that those challenges, those moments of darkness, are actually opportunities for growth.
Dr. Larijani brought up a fascinating point about this, referencing Saadi's metaphor of the traveler. Saadi says, the wise traveler enjoys the scenery along the way, for he knows he may never pass this way again.
I love that. It encourages us to savor each moment, to appreciate the beauty of the journey even when it's challenging.
And Saadi also emphasized the importance of slowing down, of being present in each moment, of appreciating the simple things.
He's talking about mindfulness. Isn't he really paying attention to what we're doing, what we're feeling, and what's happening around us?
Exactly. And Dr. Dinani shared a story about Saadi that beautifully illustrates this.
Oh, tell me more.
Saadi was walking through the marketplace one day and saw a poor man begging for food.
What did he do?
He didn't just give him money or food. He invited him home, shared his meal with him, and talked to him, treating him with the utmost respect and dignity.
He could have easily just given him some money and kept walking. Instead, he took the time to truly see this person, to connect with him on a human level.
And that's the core of Saadi's message, recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every human being, regardless of their circumstances.
It's about seeing that divine spark in everyone.
Which leads us to another key aspect of Saadi's teachings, the importance of community.
Community.
He stresses the need for both solitude and connection to thrive.
I remember him using the metaphor of a garden to illustrate this, right?
Yes. Dr. Dinani pointed out how Saadi said, just as a garden needs both sunlight and rain to flourish, so too does the human soul need both solitude and community to thrive.
Such a beautiful analogy. It's about finding that balance between tending to our inner world and nurturing those connections with others.
And Saadi was very clear that true community isn't just about surrounding yourself with people you like or who make you feel good. It's about connecting with those who challenge you to grow, who understand and support your spiritual journey.
Those soul friends, those kindred spirits who get your deepest longings and encourage you to live authentically.
Exactly. Saadi's poems are filled with examples of the power of these types of soul connections.
It's like having a mirror reflecting your potential and a compass pointing you in the right direction.
And Saadi's teachings on community go even further. He believed it's crucial to reach out to people different from us, to bridge divides and cultivate understanding and compassion across cultures, religions, and anything else that might separate us.
Embracing diversity, challenging our own biases, and recognizing the inherent worth of every human being.
Precisely. Dr. Larijani shared a beautiful passage where Saadi states, the human family is like a garden with many different flowers. Each flower has its own unique beauty and fragrance, and together they create a tapestry of breathtaking splendor.
Such a powerful image. It's about celebrating those differences instead of being afraid of them.
Saadi believed that embracing this diversity, connecting with people different from us, is how we create a more just and harmonious world.
Building bridges instead of walls, breaking down barriers, and recognizing that we're all connected, one big human family.
And this brings us back to one of the core themes we've been exploring, the transformative power of love.
Love is that guiding principle, that force connecting us all. It seems to be the key to unlocking our potential and creating a more just and compassionate world.
Dr. Dinani said something very insightful about this. Saadi was clear that love isn't just a feeling, it's a practice, a choice we make every moment in every interaction.
So we're actively choosing to see the good in others, to extend kindness and compassion even when it's hard.
Exactly. And this practice of love changes us from the inside out. It softens our hearts, opens our minds, and connects us to something so much bigger than ourselves.
It's like tapping into a limitless source of energy, joy, and purpose.
And that energy radiates outward, influencing our relationships, communities, the entire world around us.
Saadi believed that what's inside shapes what's outside the seeds we plant in our hearts, bloom into the fruits of our lives.
If we want to create a better world, one that's more loving, just, and compassionate, we need to cultivate those qualities within ourselves.
Saadi's poetry seems to give us a roadmap, a guide to cultivating inner peace, practicing kindness, and embracing the power of love.
And as we've been exploring these ideas, I've been thinking about how relevant they are to the challenges we face in the world today.
Absolutely. With so much division and conflict, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, to lose hope. But Saadi's message of unity, of interconnectedness, of seeing the divine spark in everyone, it's more important now than ever.
His teachings on mindfulness, slowing down, and appreciating the simple things are powerful antidotes to the stress and anxiety so many people are experiencing.
And his emphasis on community, reaching out to people, different from us building bridges instead of walls, those are essential for creating a more just and harmonious world.
Yeah, and you know what else strikes me about Saadi?
What's that?
Is a sense of humor.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't shy away from a little wit.
Yeah, he can be quite funny.
Poking fun at himself
Definitely.
and the world around him. Dr. Larijani pointed out how Saadi often uses humor to make a point, challenge conventional wisdom, and even to highlight his own shortcomings.
It's like he's saying, life is a serious business, but let's not take ourselves too seriously.
Exactly. And Dr. Dinani added that this playfulness, this lightness of being, is actually an important part of the spiritual journey.
So it's not all about strict discipline and self-denial.
Not at all. Saadi believed that joy, laughter, and a sense of humor are essential for a balanced and fulfilling life.
I love that we can be serious about our spiritual growth without becoming all doom and gloom.
Precisely, and Saadi shows us how to do that through his poetry. He uses humor to point out hypocrisy, to challenge dogma, and to remind us not to get too attached to our own ideas.
It's refreshing. He seems to be saying, let's lighten up a bit and not get so caught up in the rules that we forget to enjoy the journey.
And that brings us to another important aspect of Saadi's work, his practicality.
Okay.
He wasn't just a philosopher. He was a man of the world, someone who had traveled extensively and experienced life in all its complexity.
So his teachings aren't just theoretical, they're grounded in real-world experience.
Exactly. Dr. Larijani mentioned how Saadi's poetry is full of practical advice.
Oh, wow.
On everything from conducting business to raising children.
So it's not just about lofty spiritual concepts, it's about how to live a good and meaningful life right here and now.
Dr. Dinani pointed out how Saadi often uses stories and anecdotes to illustrate his points, making his teachings both memorable and relatable.
He's like that wise friend who says, look, I've been there, made those mistakes, and here's what I learned.
Exactly. And those stories really stay with you, helping you remember the lessons long after you've finished reading the poem.
Speaking of stories, I remember Dr. Larijani sharing that classic Saadi tale about the king and the wise man.
Oh, yes. A great example.
For those who haven't heard it, want to refresh our memory.
Well, there was this king very proud of himself, boasting about all his wealth and power.
Sounds about right for a king.
The wise man listened patiently and then said, "Your Majesty, all that you have is temporary. True wealth lies in the wisdom of the heart."
A powerful reminder that material possessions come and go, but inner peace and wisdom are the true treasures.
And Saadi's poetry is full of those nuggets of wisdom, helping us navigate life's ups and downs.
It's like having a wise old friend whispering in your ear, don't forget what's truly important.
Throughout this conversation, I've been struck by how timeless Saadi's message is.
Timeless.
It feels as relevant today as it was centuries ago.
Absolutely. His teachings on love, compassion, forgiveness, and unity, those are universal values that transcend time and culture.
And in a world that's increasingly divided and polarized, Saadi's message of hope and interconnectedness feels more important now than ever.
It's a powerful reminder that we're all in this together, that we all have the potential to make a difference, and that love truly is the most powerful force in the universe.
Saadi's poetry shows us how to tap into that power, to cultivate it within ourselves and share it with the world.
This deep dive into Saadi's wisdom has been truly amazing. Thank you for guiding us through it.
It's been my pleasure.
And for our listeners, if you haven't already, we encourage you to explore Saadi's poetry for yourselves. You can find translations online or at your local library.
His message isn't just for scholars or poets, it's for everyone.
It's a message of hope, of resilience, and of the human spirit's ability to overcome even the greatest challenges.
And it's a message that resonates deeply in our current times.
So as we conclude this episode of Wisdom Unveiled, we invite you to carry Saadi's wisdom with you. Let his words inspire you to live a more meaningful life, to cultivate more love and compassion in the world, and to remember that even in the darkest of times, the light of hope is always shining.
Until next time, keep seeking, keep growing, and keep shining your light.